Hey there, Cinemaster fans! Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The series begins with a play about a character named Dolores Roach, nicknamed Dee, portrayed by a woman named Flora, who plays the role so skillfully that everyone applauds her. Afterward, Flora goes backstage to change out of her blood-stained costume and tells her friends that portraying Dolores was the most challenging role she has ever played because she wanted to show a part of her humanity to the audience. Her friends congratulate her and leave to let her change, agreeing to meet later at a party. After they leave, Flora looks at a newspaper article about Dolores, the murderer and killer. Suddenly, Dolores herself appears behind her, asking her to stay calm. Flora is shocked and cannot believe that the character she portrayed is standing before her. Dolores tells her she is still alive and came to see who is playing her in the plays. Flora nervously asks if Dolores is going to kill her, but Dolores approaches and says she will do something worse than killing her. She will share her real, unforgettable story. The story begins with Dee, who lived with her lover and partner Dominic in a small house. Dolores deeply loved Dominic and was willing to do anything for him, even getting involved in drug dealing. She became familiar with all the distribution and trade operations, and they hid their money in the bathroom in case anything happened. Dolores also stored drugs and sold them to people Dominic sent. One day, Dominic left the house, telling her that someone would come to buy a large order. After a while, the buyer arrived, and Dolores went to hand over the drugs. Suddenly, the police raided the place and arrested her. In court, she was interrogated about Dominic, but out of love for him, she refused to confess and took full responsibility for the drugs. She was sentenced to the maximum penalty of 16 years, which she served entirely. During her time in prison, she befriended her cellmate, who was a massage therapist. When Dolores was released, she had $200 and a train ticket. She decided to return to the place where she used to live, only to find that the city had changed so much that she couldn't recognize the streets. She reached the building where she used to live, thinking about Dominic and the life they shared. Upon arriving, she found she couldn't enter the building without someone letting her in. A man exited the building, and she quickly followed him inside. She went up to her old apartment, only to find a couple who had recently moved in. She asked them if they knew someone named Dominic, explaining that he was her lover from 16 years ago and that she hadn't seen him because she had just returned from the countryside. The woman was surprised and questioned how he could be her lover if she didn't know where he lived. Dolores explained that he was her lover in the past and begged to use their bathroom since she had nowhere else to go. In the bathroom, she checked the spot where they had hidden the money, only to find it gone. Devastated, she couldn't understand what had happened. She asked the couple if they knew the landlord's number, but they replied that the landlord had only bought the building a month ago and wouldn't know anything about the past. The husband seemed very annoyed by her presence, so Dolores apologized and left, unsure of what to do next. As she exited the building, she was approached by a man selling drugs who asked her what she wanted. She told him she was looking for Dominic Roach. The man became irritated and tried to come closer, claiming he had never seen her before. Dolores became angry, took his cigarette, and burned him with it. She insulted him for selling drugs in the street so recklessly, telling him that Dominic used to control the entire area and that he was just a child compared to him. She walked away and continued wandering the streets until she came across a candy shop she used to frequent. It was the only place that hadn't changed. She entered and asked the employee for a specific type of candy, offering to pay with her $200, but the employee refused, saying they couldn't accept counterfeit money. Dolores felt humiliated and was about to leave when someone called her from behind. She turned around and couldn't believe her eyes. She ran to hug the person, who turned out to be an old friend named Luis. He told the employee that Dolores was a regular member of the shop. Luis then took her to the back, where he was cutting meat and storing it for baked goods. Dolores asked him if he knew where Dominic was, but Luis said he hadn't seen him since the day she was arrested. He mentioned rumors that Dominic had either died of a heart attack or fled. Dolores was deeply upset and shared her prison experiences with Luis. Luis took her to his apartment, located below his shop, and offered her a joint to smoke. He told her about the changes in the drug trade since she had been gone. Suddenly, he experienced a severe reaction to the joint and had a panic attack. Dolores calmed him down and gave him a massage for his tense neck and shoulders. Luis was amazed by her massage skills, and Dolores explained that she had learned it from her cellmate in prison. She used to give massages to the prison guards, who were always stressed. She told Luis she was considering getting a massage license and working professionally. Luis thought it was a great idea and offered to let her stay in his apartment until she found a place of her own. Dolores was overjoyed and couldn't believe his kindness. She promised it would only be temporary and said she would sleep on the couch, but Luis insisted she take his room. She finally accepted, taking her first shower as a free woman alone and without anyone watching. She slept in Luis's father's bed, thinking about her cellmates and Dominic. We return to the present, where Dolores is telling her story to Flora. Suddenly, they're interrupted by a knock at the door. One of Flora's friends asks if she's coming to the party, and Flora says she'll meet them there, letting them leave. Dolores continues her story, taking us back to the time when she started looking for a job. She sat in Luis's shop, contemplating what kind of work she could do given her past. A woman entered the shop who turned out to be a friend of Luis. He asked her if she could help Dolores find a job. Her sister, who is the queen of the beauty salon, agrees to let Dolores work there after Luis's friend intervenes. Dolores impresses her with a massage demonstration but hides her prison past. She gets hired for $14 per hour, but faces trouble when someone from her past appears, offering her to sell drugs again. Dolores refuses and focuses on her new job, though challenges arise, including a racist landlord demanding high rent. In a heated confrontation, Dolores accidentally kills the landlord during a massage. Panicking, she tries to dispose of the body but discovers Louis has used it in baked goods sold at his shop. Dolores is horrified as the business thrives, but Louis reassures her that no trace of the body remains. Its source is what is happening, so he offers her some to eat, but she refuses completely and asks him not to eat in front of her. Suddenly, his colleague, who recommended her for the salon job, arrives, and Louis invites her to eat. However, she refuses to let her eat and asks her to follow her to the salon's work. He offers her food, but she refuses to eat it and asks her to follow her to do massages. She quickly goes down, enters the bathroom, and returns, overwhelmed by what she feels. Afterward, she comes out and sees her friend sitting on the bed she had stopped her from using. She tries to control herself, telling herself that this is the first and last time and that what happened was out of her control. She convinces herself that if she hadn't done it, she wouldn't have a place to live. After a while, Louis comes down to reassure her, telling her he made random calls from the landlord's number so everyone would think he had left. She asks him about the rest of the meat, and he tells her he froze it in the freezer. Time passes, and their secret remains undiscovered. She finally feels safe until suddenly, Jonah, the landlord's son, enters the restaurant. He says he's looking for his father. Louis talks to him, saying he spoke to his father on the phone and agreed to renew the contract. The son has no idea what his father did because the father is missing and cannot be reached. Louis tells him they spoke on the phone, implying the father wasn't there. He also mentions hearing the father say he was going on a trip. This makes the son happy, knowing his father is okay. Suddenly, the waitress, Lenny, enters and realizes the landlord's son is there. She takes him to fix some things, but before leaving, Louis insists he tries the pastries, which are made from his father's meat. Dee is shocked when she sees this and tries to stop him but cannot. The son loves the pastries so much he decides to take some with him. Dee breaks down, talking to herself, saying she's condemning herself to hell for what she's doing. She quickly goes down to the apartment, saying she can't live like this. However, she remembers she doesn't yet have enough money to rent another place. She looks at a board with pictures of everything she dreams of achieving, decides to encourage herself, and goes to Louis's kitchen. She gathers all the meat and pastries he made, throws them in the trash, pours oil over them, and sets them on fire. Louis rushes to put out the fire and is devastated by the loss of his pastries. Dee tells him that if he truly cared for her and was afraid for her, he should have thrown his body into the fire instead of feeding it to the sun. She asks if this was the last piece of meat left. He confirms it was. Dee feels reassured, leaves him, and decides to return to university to continue her studies, which she abandoned because of Dominic. When she enters, she finds a collection of books belonging to her close friend Georgina, who was with her at her mother's funeral, and during all her tough times until they drifted apart. She hears Georgina's voice as she begins a lecture for the students. Dee feels very sad. Suddenly, a college employee asks her to schedule an appointment before meeting Dr. Georgina. Dee says she doesn't want to meet her. She just wants to resume her university studies, which she left 16 years ago. After finishing, she returns to Louis's restaurant. On the way, she encounters the same woman who helped her open the beauty salon. Dee suspects the woman is selling drugs behind her back, especially since Louis's restaurant has never been this crowded, except after the woman's arrival. Dee tells her she will never sell hashish again, which was the reason she went to prison. She decides to be kind to her, saying their first meeting was bad, and invites her to her place for a massage. The woman agrees and goes with her. Dee leaves her on the new massage bed and goes to the bathroom. Upon returning, she finds the woman searching the room with a knife in her hand, asking about the drugs. Dee swears she doesn't have any and that Louis bought a new type of meat, but the woman doesn't believe her. She mocks Dee, saying she hasn't learned anything from what Dominic did to her. Dee is confused and asks what she means. The woman mocks her, saying she's pathetic for not knowing Dominic was the one who reported her. He was sure she would sacrifice herself, refusing to say anything, hoping he'd stay loyal to her. The woman reveals Dominic had relationships with half the girls in the area because Dee wasn't enough for him. Dee is in disbelief, realizing the love of her life was a lie and that the best 5 years of her life weren't real. She becomes so angry she attacks the woman, recalling her cellmate's advice on how to choke someone and hold them in a way to break their neck. She tries to break her neck until she remembers she can make her fall to the ground while holding her, which would easily break her neck. After the woman dies, Dee rushes to tell Lewis what happened. Unfortunately, she finds their neighbor, who has a YouTube channel exploring the city's hidden restaurants. Dee tells Lewis there's a new meat shipment in the warehouse and that he must go check it out. Lewis understands she killed someone else and quickly goes down. Dee leaves the restaurant, overwhelmed, and decides to visit her cellmate. She talks about what she did after getting out of prison, hinting that she followed all her advice to the letter. Her cellmate understands and asks who she killed. Dee says it doesn't matter. What's important is she wants to find Dominic. She asks for the name of a private investigator who specializes in finding people who don't want to be found. Her cellmate warns her she'll end up back in prison for the rest of her life. Dee begs her, saying she must avenge the person who ruined her life, used her as a sacrifice, and lived his life freely. Her cellmate agrees and asks what she plans to do when she finds him. Dee says she'll put him on the restaurant menu, implying she'll kill him and make people eat him. She gets the address and goes to the private investigator, Rossi, telling her about her past conviction for drug dealing. She says she wants to find her boyfriend who disappeared 16 years ago. Rossi asks if he was also a drug dealer and learns he was her partner. Rossi refuses to look for him, saying such things only end in death or prison. Dee begs her, saying Dominic wasted her life and exploited her naivety and love. Why? And that's why you have to take revenge on him. The Russian woman feels her tragedy and agrees to help her, telling her to come back in 2 weeks. She leaves the place, but suddenly she encounters the man who used to deliver meat to Lewis's restaurant before he started using human meat. He offers to take her and asks why Louis stopped buying from him. She becomes extremely nervous and tells him she doesn't interfere in his business and knows nothing about it. The butcher looks at her suspiciously, sensing something is wrong. She finally arrives, her fear intensifying, confused by his gaze as if he knows something. She enters the restaurant and finds that time is tighter than before. She learns that Louis didn't wait a moment and quickly disposed of the last body. Suddenly, she finds herself face to face with the Russian woman, who was with her just half an hour ago. She asks how she returned so quickly. The Russian woman explains she was lucky to find Dominic quickly and tells her he died in a fire at his house in 2007. She shows her a picture of his corpse, which displays a golden tooth that confirmed to the police it was indeed Dominic. She tells her she burned and couldn't understand her sadness because she had wished for his death, but she realizes she wanted to kill him with her own hands. She thanks the Russian woman and asks if she is tired, but the Russian woman says she doesn't need anything and leaves. She enters the restaurant, sad, but Lewis's kind friend approaches her, asking for a massage. She keeps insisting until she gets very annoyed and tells her she can't make people happy every time they need it. Lewis's friend gets upset and leaves while she talks to herself, saying Lewis's friend didn't deserve such treatment. But she's so angry she feels she could kill her if she massages her. She stands in the shop and suddenly finds herself face to face with Jonah, who asks about his missing father, who hasn't spoken in a long time. She becomes nervous before seeing the Russian woman standing and buying pastries. She hears Jonah talking about his father's disappearance and asks him how long he's been missing. He tells her it's been 2 weeks, but he couldn't report it to the police because his father is involved in illegal activities. Sometimes he gambles and gets himself into trouble, and other times he loses himself in brothels. The Russian woman understands what he means and promises to help him. She panics, runs as fast as she can to inform Louis about what happened, and searches for him until she enters his room. She finds a large number of toys and stuffed animals, feeling he is still a child. Then she hears a sound in the bathroom and enters, only to be shocked by the bodies of the 2 he killed, hung up with large parts of their bodies missing. She screams in horror, feeling like she's in a fictional horror movie, until Louis appears behind her, trying to calm her down. She quickly leaves the place and asks him for a joint. She then tells him about the Russian woman, who is very skilled and can find anyone easily. Louis thinks of a solution, reassuring her and saying he will bear all the guilt if anything happens. Then he remembers he still has the phone of the place's owner. He takes it and leaves with Louis from the restaurant, spotting Lenny standing with Jonah, helping him put up posters of his missing father. Louis makes her return to the restaurant and asks her to help him and keep an eye on him. She walks with him, hanging posters of his father, until she notices the restaurant camera and realizes the recordings could expose her since he entered and never came out. The Russian woman arrives to inform Jonah that the camera didn't record everything because it malfunctions and promises to find his father as soon as possible. Later, she stands with Jonah, who suddenly receives a message from his father saying he's okay and apologizing for the delay, explaining he's settling his debts with someone far away. Jonah feels reassured since the message contains words only his father would say. After confirming, he calls the Russian woman to cancel her mission, removes all the posters he put up, and returns home. She feels very relieved and thanks Louis for his help. Later, she looks through Dominic's files and becomes puzzled by his residence, which differs from what he told her. Louis arrives, and she thanks him again, calling him clever. Then she gets closer to him, and they decide to be together. Louis confesses to her that he saw Dominic's files and knows he couldn't have died in 2007 because he still sends gifts to his grandmother. She is surprised and asks how he knows. He tells her Dominic's grandmother lives in the same building, and that if he had died, they would have held a memorial for him. But he asks her to forget about it since no one knows his exact whereabouts. He takes her to the room and gives her photos, asking her to burn them and focus on her future. She agrees and burns part of the photo, saying she will indeed focus on the future. But later, she talks to herself, saying the future won't come unless she sees Dominic burn like the photo in front of her eyes. The next day, she goes to Dominic's grandmother's apartment and introduces herself, giving her full name. The grandmother opens the door and curses her, saying she brought shame to Dominic, her grandson, the family, and the whole neighborhood. It turns out Dominic made them believe he knew nothing about her drug dealing. She tries to explain, but the grandmother refuses to listen and shuts the door in her face. Suddenly, the YouTube channel owner opens his apartment door and asks her for a back massage. She agrees and goes down to the restaurant, sad. Suddenly, she sees Jonah in front of her, standing with someone, offering Louis to open restaurant branches in every neighborhood. But Louis completely rejects the idea, telling Jonah he won't let him take advantage of his father's reputation and make money off it. He gets so angry that he kicks Jonah out of the shop. She's very upset with him and runs after Jonah. Louis asks her where. She went in the morning. She tells him she went to Dominic's grandmother. Louis gets very upset, saying she doesn't understand his feelings and that he loves her. She tells him she won't rest until she finds Dominic. Louis gets angry, saying he can't handle this and decides to leave her. After a while, the same person who annoyed her the first time she came to the neighborhood arrives. She had put out her cigarette and asks her for a massage. She agrees and lets him enter the room. There, he tells her he is looking for his mother, who has been missing for days. She realizes it's the same woman she killed and becomes very nervous, but she tries to listen to everything he has to say. He tells her another disappearance occurred days ago, involving the building owner, suspecting they might be related. She begins to massage him and asks if he has any allergies. He tells her he is allergic to nuts. She applies oil to his body and suddenly the young man starts choking and can't breathe. He tells her he is allergic to coconut oil, mistaking it for nuts. She said it while quickly searching his bag, which indicated to her and found a syringe. She didn't know what she was supposed to intervene in. She placed it on his chest. His heart stopped. She couldn't believe what was happening to her since she got out of prison. Suddenly, Rossi entered. She said she had discovered her and knew everything she was doing. She told her she had tracked down Jonah's father's phone and found it located on the metro line in their area. This was despite the message sent saying he was in a completely different place. She decided to unlock the phone and easily figured out the password, which was the last 3 digits of his social security number. On the phone, she found an app connected to a watch that monitored heart rate. It rang as soon as his heart rate exceeded the average, and she pressed on it. The watch rang in the room, making her very nervous, and she quickly attacked her at that moment. He was there with the nutrition inspector evaluating his kitchen and the quality of his food. She heard a strange noise coming from the ground floor, so he tried to distract her at that moment. She tried to kill Rossi, who also saw the body of the young man with the horrible wound. Rossi explained to her that she didn't want to kill her and that they should leave the country without anyone harming the other. She told her she couldn't guarantee she wouldn't report her to the police as soon as she left. Rossi said she was a private investigator and would never want the police involved in her work, which would get her suspended. She agreed to Rossi's words, and as soon as she felt Rossi was reassured, she attacked her again. She dropped a very heavy drug dealer's bed on her, immobilizing her, and suddenly the man woke up on his own. She killed him with a broken bottle and then strangled Rossi, killing them both. She broke down, telling herself she didn't want to be a serial killer. Suddenly, she heard Louis's voice coming down with the nutrition inspector. She quickly locked the door with the 2 bodies inside. Fortunately, the inspector left after confirming the apartment was for living, not food storage. After she left, Louis entered the room and was shocked to find the 2 bodies. He was very happy because he could make more baked goods. He slaughtered the bodies quickly to drain all the blood from them. She witnessed this scene and collapsed in grief. Afterward, she went out for a walk. On the way, she encountered the same butcher who looked at her suspiciously. She asked him if he was watching her, and he admitted that he was. He said he knew that a week after she got out of prison, Malik al-Omar disappeared. 2 days later, Louis started selling at a rate he hadn't sold in years, without taking meat from him. Shortly afterward, The drug dealer she resembled from her earlier days disappeared. Then, Rossi, who entered and hadn't come out until now, disappeared. She was shocked and asked him what he wanted from her. He told her he was in a lot of debt and wanted to work with her to get rid of certain people. She was shocked and felt guilty because the kindest person she had ever met had turned into someone sick with a desire to kill, without realizing it was wrong. She walked away from him without saying a word and decided to end all the chaos she had caused with her own hands. She suggested to Louis that they accept Jonah's offer, sell the shop, and travel to live together anywhere. Louis agreed and made arrangements with Jonah to finalize the deal, even giving him the recipes for the dishes he made so he could continue running the place. However, Jonah became upset and refused completely, saying he would go back on his word if they delayed. She suggested Louis collect all the rent he received and pay it to Jonah. Jonah agreed, and they arranged for payment at the beginning of the month. Afterward, Louis walked with her, showing her the fake IDs he had made for them. He confessed that he had loved her for a long time and had always wanted to be with her someday. They agreed on the place they would travel to in order to disappear completely. After some time, they returned to the restaurant. Suddenly, they heard Dominic's grandmother screaming. They rushed upstairs to find her in the bathroom with a broken leg, and the bathtub was filled with blood due to clogged pipes. One of the neighbors suggested calling a plumber or the municipality, but Jonah begged them not to avoid causing problems for his father. Louis said he understood plumbing and would fix it himself. She took the grandmother to the hospital, where the grandmother thanked her for her help and asked what she wanted from her. She told her she just wanted to know Dominic's whereabouts. The grandmother said she didn't know where he was, only that he sent her Christmas gifts through an Australian woman. Afterward, the grandmother fell asleep from the painkillers. She thought of all the possibilities until she remembered her friendship with Georgina, who had introduced her to Dominic and had become a university professor. She guessed that Georgina had gotten involved with Dominic, which was why she didn't help her. Georgina was the only mutual friend between them and was originally Australian. She quickly went to the university, where she met her friend Georgina for the first time in years. She felt nervous and embarrassed, especially since Georgina didn't want to sit with her and said she had to pick up her son. She was thrilled to know Georgina had a child and walked with her until the train. She asked if she was still in a relationship with Dominic. Georgina said that since they got together and lived together, she hadn't known anything about them. She also said she had stopped smoking hashish and cut ties with most people. She asked why Georgina hadn't visited her, and Georgina said she felt embarrassed. She became angry and told Georgina she was sorry if spending half her life in prison had embarrassed her and caused her not to help, even though she knew she was innocent. Georgina got angry and said she had distanced herself because she was deceitful and rude. She was shocked by Georgina's words and felt more sadness for herself than for the fact that she had killed and dealt drugs. And she goes to talk to Louis, telling him what happened and promising him that she will try to stay away from Dominic. However, she admits to him that she can't forget the idea of losing years of her life because of him. Louis tells her that everything will be okay. He manages to fix the pipes, but between the parts of the freezer and the restaurant, he locks it. Later, he gets close to Dee, and they enter into a relationship. However, Louis pulls away from her as soon as she touches him in a certain way. Suddenly, Dee sees his body, which is completely disfigured. She asks him who did this to him. Louis breaks down and has a panic attack. He tells her that when he was 12 years old, his father's girlfriend harassed him. At that time, his father got angry and kicked her out of the house. This caused Louis to fall into a state of sadness and depression because she had been living with them for 10 years, and his father loved her very much, especially after his mother abandoned them. Louis felt guilty because he had enjoyed what happened, thinking he was the reason for the family's disintegration and his father's sadness. So he decided to mutilate his genitalia to punish himself but couldn't complete the act. Instead, he poured boiling oil on it to stop the bleeding before he could die. Dee is shocked by what she hears, hugs him, and tries to make him understand that he wasn't to blame for anything. The next day, Dee wakes up and hears a sound coming from the place where the freezer is. She rushes there and finds Jonah preparing a surprise for Nellie. She looks at the freezer and confirms that the lock is still there, leaving him to do what he wants. After a while, she returns and suddenly finds the freezer open. She quickly calls Jonah and finds him standing in shock in front of his father's head. She panics with him and quickly breaks his neck. Louis appears behind them, shocked, and they realize they can't sell the restaurant or escape their fate. Suddenly, they hear Nellie calling for Jonah. They quickly close the freezer. Nellie arrives and asks about Jonah. Dee tells her that he stayed for a while and then went to work. Nellie is very surprised because he was with her earlier and told her he was going to work downstairs. After confirming that they don't know his whereabouts, she leaves but later returns after calling his phone and hearing its ringtone. Louis distracts her, telling her they should open the restaurant. Dee feels guilty and thinks she's a monster, not a human. She goes out to call Louis but is surprised to find him standing with a police officer. She overhears their conversation and learns that the police officer is blackmailing Lewis because he suspects him of selling drugs. This is because the person responsible for drugs in the area disappeared after suspecting they were competing with her, implying they bribed her to leave the area. Lewis mocks the officer and tells him they don't sell anything. The officer tries to get closer to him, but Dee calls Lewis over before he fights with the officer. She tells him they need to escape immediately, giving him an hour to join her, or she'll leave alone. Dee gathers her money in a massage bag and prepares to flee. Lewis goes to deal with the remaining bodies and escape with her, but suddenly Louis's friend arrives and asks Dee to massage her back. Dee tells her she's busy, but Lewis's friend insists, saying she helped her, even though she didn't know her, and sent her clients who went to her laundromat. She even cut ties with her sister for 2 weeks because of her. Dee feels guilty and agrees to massage her back. However, Lewis's friend keeps talking and pressuring Dee about her behavior toward her. Dee asks her to be quiet, but she keeps talking until she calls her rude, just like her sister. Dee gets very angry upon hearing the word rude, which had been bothering her from her friend Georgina. She breaks her neck in a fit of rage, killing her. Dee realizes what she's done and knows she's become a killer who murders anyone who annoys her, no matter who they are. She rushes out to call Louis, but is shocked to find the police standing in front of the restaurant. Dee is stunned and asks Lewis what happened. He tells her he moved the bodies to the roof and reported Nellie, claiming she killed all the missing people. This was to get her arrested and distract the police so they could escape. Dee is horrified and asks him how he could do this to her after they killed her lover. Lewis tells her she's the reason their plan failed because she got involved with Jonah. Dee denies being the reason and argues with him, saying they are the ones at fault. She declares she doesn't want to continue with him and will escape alone. Suddenly, the butcher intervenes and decides to help Dee escape through the back door. But Louis fights with him, and during the struggle, they accidentally push Louis hard, killing him. Dee tries to save him, but Louis stops her, letting himself die. Dee breaks down, grabs her bag quickly, and decides to escape. Louis tries to stop her by force but then begs her not to leave him alone. She distracts him until she reaches the boiling oil and pours it on his face, burning part of her hand in the process. The oil spills onto the fire, and the place starts to burn. The police enter the burning building just as Dee escapes through the back door. She quickly gets into the butcher's car, overwhelmed and unable to think. 3 years pass, and we return to Dee recounting her story to Flora, who sympathizes with her. Flora tells her she was a victim of circumstances, but Dee refuses to justify her actions. She admits she was at fault, and that the play based on her story is accurate, and that she deserves worse. Flora asks Dee what she did after escaping. Dee says she stayed hidden for 3 years, searching for Dominic, but to no avail. She then bids Flora farewell, thanking her for trying to show the humanity within her, and leaves. Dee goes to a party where the play's director, who is also the neighbor who used to live in their building and conducted interviews about restaurants, is present. Dee threatens to kill him if he doesn't pay her money for the play made in her name. The director tells her he can lead her to Dominic in exchange for sparing him. Dee agrees, gets into his car, and they drive to a massive house. She asks him to wait for her and goes to knock on the door. As soon as the door opens, Dee bursts into hysterical laughter and attacks the person who opened it, who could either be her friend Georgina or her ex-lover Dominic, and the series ends. If you liked today's video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all new updates. See you in the next video. Goodbye.